Hey all, it's Steppa with Gordo's Games, and the Digimon card game community has been shaken up with recent announcements. BT11 Dimensional Phase had already done enough to shake up the meta with the introduction of some powerful new tools, but recent events were still displaying results from the best decks of BT9. As such, the decision came down that Ultimate Cups would follow a new set of rules, specifically decks needing to match the color of their eggs. Paired alongside some bans, the meta is now more open than ever, and today I want to talk about a deck that was previously ignored. Gaomon was an archetype introduced in BT4 with 4 pieces of proper support. They were centered around the Digiburst mechanic, seen especially in Gaomon, who only exists to be recycled off the mechanic returning to hand when bursted. The level 4 Gaogamon didn't do much to impress, drawing 1 off of a Digiburst of 2. The level 5 Mach was more viable, bouncing a level 4 off of a Digiverse 2, and granting a 2k buff when you have a Tamer in play. Finally, Mirage caps line, gaining back a memory for each 4 cards in the opponent's hand on Evo, and not being able to be blocked. They also came with a Tamer, Thomas, who for 3 memory would draw you a card on play and unsuspend a Gao Digimon by suspending himself, when meeting the condition of 8 or more cards in your opponent's hand. For the longest time, none of these saw any success, being an incomplete archetype, and while this would change with BT11 and the BT4 support laid out some of the gameplay decisions that would be made with BT11, the issue was that none of them were particularly powerful. Writing off the rookie and champion immediately, you might consider Mach for his buff and bounce, but Mirage has easy access to jamming with BT11 and less decks sit on level 4s than during BT4. And while Mirage has a cute reduction, there's enough redirection with Machine Dramon and Blackboard Greymon, or even rogue picks like Armor or Galacticmon, it's not relevant enough as is. Thomas has some innocuous viability with his unsuspend, but we'll discuss that once we cover the current BT11 support. Our first 4 from BT11 is the Gaomon, who will draw us a card when attacking if you have a blue Tamer in play. This is something that's very easy for the deck to achieve and is going to keep our hand full and digging deeper for other utility Tamers. Next up is Gaomon, another 4 who on play will look at the top 3, grabbing a Digimon with Gaogamon and 1 blue Tamer. Since we're not in the full tribe, we may not always get the 2-for-1s, but the potential is there. His inherit is going to let us bounce level 3 to hand on attack when we have a Tamer in play. This isn't only good for dealing with various utility rookies, but it's going to trigger some of the other effects in the deck. Moving up to the level 4 slot, like his BT4 counterpart, Gaogamon is less impressive. He's going to gain us some memory on attack when our opponent has 8 or more cards in hand, and he has the same inherent as Gaomon, which is unlikely to have both proc if you were to have a stack with both, as not many decks sit on a multitude of level 3s right now. Mach does a bit more on Evo, granting blocker and 2k DP for every 4 cards in the opponent's hand, which can be nice for buying a bit more time to set up, but his real value is in his inherit, which when in effect adds a card to the opponent's hand will unsuspend him. Finally, the BT11 Mirage Gaogamon surpasses the BT4 counterpart, on Evo bouncing a level 5 to the opponent's hand, and if no Digimon was bounced by this effect, stripping the top of their security to hand instead. Not only does this finally give blue its own specialized method of handling security, it can help you land your alpha strikes and remove critical level 5s and below from your opponent's field. You can bounce a Metal Greymon, which no longer has access to its protection clause due to X antibody being functionally banned, or remove any of the level 5 cyborgs and Machine Dramon, slowing their progress towards strategies that will wall you. He also is going to have an effect similar to the BT4 counterpart, where you're going to check for every 4 cards in your opponent's hand and gain a memory whenever a card is added to your opponent's hand. This is effectively always going to trigger unless you're in the situation where your opponent doesn't have either any security remaining or a level 5 or lower Digimon. The effect is better, however, as it's an all-turns effect. This means that for whatever reason your opponent's going to be adding a card to their hand, or say they hit their security and go to one of our removal options which is going to bounce a card back to hand, you could potentially steal back turn. This idea only gets supplemented by Nikolai, who's a 3-memory Tamer who on start and main phase can grant a Gaomon jamming, which is going to add some value to Gaogamon as you can hide him in raising, then promote, swing with jamming, and gain a memory. However, Nikolai also carries the ability that he will gain a memory by suspending when an effect adds a card to the opponent's hand. Similar to the purple Mimi and Kari, Nikolai and multiple can serve to inhibit the opponent by threatening to steal back turn, and while not there yet, we are in options that bounce hand, making security attacks even more risky for the opponent. Pair this with a Mirage Gaogamon, and all of your opponent's searchers or any effects that might filter the top are going to be so much less valuable to them as they're going to come with this memory losing debuff. With only 5 to 6 playable cards, the Gaogamon engine is very light. Now there is future support coming on the horizon in EX4 and BT13, but as is now, we do have the outline of what the deck wants to look like. Stealing back memory when you bounce back to opponent's hand, going up into a Mirage Gaogamon that you want to sit on, generally building up value with blue Tamers. This leaves us at sort of an impasse. Everything listed previously would be a 4 of except for maybe the level 4, and that's because the other engine we're going to be splashing as is the blue hybrid engine from BT7. Because we're already playing a relatively low-cost tamer in Nikolai and potentially even Thomas, we're going to have enough tamers on board. And there are also some synergies both with jamming and with the ability to add back to hand that is present in the blue hybrid cards. Now, I'm sure you have a certain level of familiarity with this deck, as it was overwhelming during the BT7 meta, so we won't beat up on the effects of the Digimon too bad. Our first is Strabimon, who's going to serve to fetch up our hybrids and tamers, helping to keep our grip full and offer good starting plays. We're not in on Koji, and we can't always guarantee it'll be hybrid attacking, so the other two Strabimon rookies really don't come into the equation. Next up is Kumamon, who offers a Source Strip, but more importantly will Evo for 2 on level 3 as we are on the Beast form hybrids, and we don't want to pay 3 memory to go into champions potentially. And because of him, we're able to take advantage of Miragegaogamon, who offers the unconditional stun when a hybrid is present in sources, and this effect is so good with all the strong attackers and defenders in the game right now. We're also on one Tommy, who without an X antibody option can actually decently hit things, and with another card in the deck, his Inherit can also set up fairly well to stun even more Digimon. And while there is no Koji, Kendogurumon is another option, offering up another path to jamming to allow some free pokes, and with Miragegaogamon, another way to tower up, drawing cards and filtering through our deck. In the level 5 slot, Beowulfmon is too much of a house not to play at 4, evoing for 1 most of the time, and very importantly having a bounce effect. With Nikolai or even a Mirage on board, this is going to allow some serious pressure and tempo, spinning a card back to hand and gaining a memory while doing so. The same is present in the Mega slot with Garurumon, who was fairly underrated during his time in BT7, with both an on-evo and on-attack to kick back a card from his sources to bounce a card of the same level. Thanks to this on Digivolve, if you have Nikolai's on board and you're sending something back, this can help to make up for the hefty 4 evo cost. And he also has another effect where whenever a card is added back to your opponent's hand, you can unsuspend any one of your Digimon. Because of the blocker potentially you're gaining from a Mirage Gaogamon that might have already attacked, or just all the jamming that the deck already has, this is going to offer up some pretty nasty Alpha Strike potential, while also clearing your opponent's board. For our additional tamers, we're on Davis to Memory Reset, and while I do like Kyoshiro, who can draw us a card on level 5 attacking, Davis offers more immediate value, especially out of security. For Memory Plussing, I'm electing to take Sora and Joe. There's so many valuable inherited skills we can strip away, and we're attacking with jamming, so it makes it fairly safe. There's also enough stun in the deck to help lock down certain cards to gain back extra memory to extend our plays. Sora and Joe, as well as the previously listed Tommy and Kumamon, also synergize with our first option, Sorai, which is even stronger than previously thought this format. Ripping 4 from the top and then locking down any Digimon without sources from attacking, it can serve to seriously disturb an opponent's inherits or any deck looking to rush with sourceless Digimon like D-Brigade or Bloom Hydra. Hammer Spark is another consideration for options, often a security threat that can steal back turn or just extend a play earlier on. And then for proper removal, Cocytus Breath has increased in value with no X antibody option for the protections. However, with the specific bans for Ultimate Cup, I don't see a reason to run it over V Wingblade. All Omnimon are effectively banned, as is Death Xmon. However, there is the niche chance for cards like the Bond forms, Alphamon or Yuken, or Aegistramon, so you may want the unconditional bounce for a more personal call on if you want to risk it for the ability to save a memory on a hardcast. Another card I'm experimenting with is the BT11 Ice Statue, which reduces by 1 if you have a tamer going from 6 to 5, and trashes the top 3 from an opponent's Digimon, then bounces a Digimon with no sources. Potentially hitting 2 targets is great, ripping sources is effective, you can spread the level of the effect, and furthermore with no X-Anti option, it's much more likely you'll have targets to remove. And of course, being in blue, 1 copy of Ice Wall is a must. And with all of that considered, here's the final list, though it is subject to change. I feel like the hybrid package helps to compensate for the weakness of Gaomon right now, but there are other things you could add. Leomon and Jerry offer a different defensive skew to the deck, and if you really wanted to, there may be some value in going in on more of the archetype names, Thomas and Nikolai to try to OTK. The new Ultimate Cup format has opened up the playing field, and as such, testing is critical right now. I feel that while these numbers and ratios may change, Hybrid Mirage is an effective rogue pick that could surprise the player base. It offers utility in bounce, jamming, unsuspending, drawing cards, allows you to play a bevy of different tamers with interesting utility effects. But of course, Mirage is going to continue up into BT13 where we get some serious payoff, so I think now is the best time to pick up cards, especially alt arts. Do you want to see us cover this deck again when we get closer to that set? What new builds are you trying in light of Ultimate Cup changes? We have a video coming out soon that will talk more on the ramifications of this decision. What other content would you like to see from the channel? As always, this is Deborah with Gordo's Games. Stay safe and have a great day.